Excuse me? Hello? If everyone take a seat if you can. If not, don't worry. Just reminding everyone that over to the left here, there is a book where you can write a little story about mom. I guess I'm up here, Mom. So there's a book over here, a story about mom. We'd really love to hear your stories. We would love to hear memories you had of the force of nature that was my mother. So yeah, as you all know, mom was a whirlwind. She was energy. She was nonstop. She was nuts. Her passing was as shocking as you could be. I mean, like everyone, you picture something happening. And for my mom, peacefully in Peru, after just speaking to her, was not on the list. Kidnapped by guerrillas, attacked by cave crickets, lost in a jungle, lost in a cave, all on my list. Quiet, peacefully in Peru, not there. Also, to keep with the unbelievable that is Nana, she reported herself. Like her phone accidentally clicked on for her passing. And I only mention this because she died peacefully. There was no pain, there was no suffering. It was over in 30 seconds. So if anyone's wondering, it was peaceful. There was no suffering, no hurting. It was typical mom. You couldn't believe it. I saw the tape, I heard everything. The paramedics said it, I didn't believe them. And then I saw the clip and went, well, figures mom would do something amazing in the end. She, as everyone knows, a world traveler. She went everywhere. She loved her job. She loved teaching. I mean, we would joke with her about retirement and how she had no idea the meaning of the word. Her retirement is most people working full time. But when it came to science, when it came to biology, she had such a love for it that she couldn't stop. And anyone who took her class or met her could feel that love. And it spread everywhere into the most craziest of places, which I can't say anymore because we buried mom. And the person who dug the grave went, I knew Kathy Lavoie. I had an interview with her. She was a great lady. And I'm like, that's amazing. I went to get something notarized the other day and the woman went, Kathy Lavoie, she was one of my favorite teachers. And I'm like, of course mom would touch someone else's life. And everyone who ever met her would say how amazing and nice and kind and generous. I knew she was, but as we found out things, I didn't know to the degree it was. She gave away money constantly. She just didn't care about it. She cared more about adventure and people. I co-signing loans for students because she wanted to help them. I found letters in her office, students thanking her saying, I would never be where I am today if it wasn't for you caring for me. And that's Nana. Nana was caring. Nana was just amazing, as I said, force of nature. I'm sad that she passed now because one of her favorite seasons is starting up, which is hurricane season. She was obsessed with them. And I think one force of nature being obsessed with another is a perfect thing. And, you know, we want your stories of Nana because a lot of them, anyone else you wouldn't believe. But with Nana, was like, it cracks. Like I found out recently that she kicked a shark. I didn't know this till recently. And I'm not surprised. It's like, okay, I can see it. That tracks. That's what she was. She's been stung by scorpions. She flew on the plane of drug smugglers to get a better view of the Amazon rainforest. That sounds crazy, but it's true. She explored caves. I mean, she was the closest to Indiana Jones anyone will ever meet. And she was a little old heavyset woman. But she never stopped. She would kept going. And it would be like, Mom, you're gonna relax? A little. Like a little relaxed. I'm just going to Iceland this year. That'd be a trip of a lifetime for someone else. For her, Tuesday. One of the things I'm going to miss are the little things that I was very fortunate to share with her. One of my favorites is Antique Roadshow. We used to love watching that together. Our favorite thing was every so often they have an episode where they'd say if products have, improved, gone down, and we would guess on how it did. Awful at it. Like we were the worst. When we got it right, it was like, whoa, we won the Super Bowl. And that's just who that it was. She was this globe-trotting, larger than life, but loved the little. Like everyone else, she loves dingoes, mammoths. As the Hoyes know, her love of Niagara Falls, which they thought they would spend time finding more weird Niagara Falls stuff to send to each other, which was just perfect. It was the way she was. She was this oddity. Like she wasn't meant to be mass produced. She was meant to be a singularity, this light that touched people. And I am glad to see everyone here, to see she's so many. And I know there's many more that couldn't attend here that she has touched. And I just want to thank all of you for coming here to remember the amazing woman that was Dana. Thank you. If anyone would like to say anything, please come to me and I will have you come on up and speak. I did this on purpose because I like hearing people say stuff off the cuff. And with Mom, it was a whirlwind force of nature thing. And so if anyone wants to say anything, it would be welcome. Any little story, any little anecdote, even if you want to say how inaccurate my pile is from her Nana papers, because if anyone saw her office, it would be this mound of things that only she knew where it was. She would wave her magic finger and go, the paper's there. She was always right. I have no idea how she did it, which is ironic that her granddaughters can't find anything. I think she used it all up for the family. All right, thank you. Jim Lavoie. Yes. Okay. Because this happened. 23rd Chuck. There is good concert. There's Molly and the other grandmother. Son Jimmy comes up with the car because the other grandmother didn't move all that well. Kathy was really feeling good. And so Donna and little Molly and Jimmy took off in the car. Kathy went out to the parking lot. As much we know, witnesses and stuff. Seemed happy, seemed ready to go, enjoyed the concert. She got in the car. Witnesses, she pulled out from the parking space. There is an aisle that was the parking lot. Outside the parking lot, there's a two-lane road that two-way that leads to the road, and the other side leads to the high school. Kathy's car began to accelerate. There is posts, there are sidewalks, and this car threaded right through to the exit of the parking lot, across this double-lane road to a faculty parking lot, across 8 empty parking spaces to hit a 16-foot cyclone fence. The car continued to accelerate when she was there until the tires smoked.
fire department, EMS, and to me, the hard part was my 14-year-old granddaughter looked at the accident and said, "That's Nana." And I look at that and say, I know it was quick. I know about read between the lines of the accident scene and what the EMS did, that she died before that car hit that wall. But she managed to take that car out of the parking lot. She didn't hit anybody. She didn't hit a car. She was not dying, at least closing down. She managed to avoid everybody so that she would not hurt anybody else. She'd take care to the very end. And that was the woman I knew. She was a force of nature. People could say a million things about her, but I know she cared very, very much. She cared about all of you. She cared about teaching. She cared about science. And for me, that accident speaks everything. It could have been a tragedy beyond her death. Closing down, her last thought was for everybody else. Just see from the way she did it. And that's about all I have to say, and thank you very much for coming. And be sure to take some of the stuff. Remember Kathy by, we brought a lot of stuff for you guys to take away, and she really wants you to have it as a memory. Thank you.
Please have Steve Light come to the stage. Okay.
Well, thank you, Jim. Jim contacted me a couple of days ago and asked me if I could tell a few stories, I guess is what he asked me to do that. I worked for 8 years as Kath's associate dean and in the office next to hers, and along with many people whom you know, Al Mahalik and Melanie O'Connell, who's here, and some others. And so just a few anecdotes that we could go on for a long time, but these are some of my favorites. My association with Kathy began in the summer of 1997. I was at a youth soccer game out in Cumberland Head with my boys who were younger then, and one of the other parents, SUNY faculty member also, he came to me and said, "Did you hear the new dean bought the house next to yours?" And I thought, it's terrible. The new dean bought the house next to mine. She's going to see if I'm late for work, or she's going to check up. This is horrible. And I was mortified. And then, of course, when I got to know Kathy, I realized that that's not who she was. And in fact, when I became associate dean, I realized that she, most of the time, didn't get to work till about 10. And of course, the rest of us were there at 8 o'clock, right? And the reason for that, though, is that she would stay very late, and she would go to every event. She would go to concerts. She would go to student presentations. She just hockey games. And so her day began a little later, and it ended much later than many people. She's wonderful about that. She was really smart, and I used to, of course, as a sociologist, I love to observe people in group dynamics. I used to watch. She would have monthly meetings of the department chairs with the dean, and I remember the first meeting she was at with the department chairs, and all of us in the room very quickly realized that she was probably the smartest person in the room, right? So everyone with their PhDs realized that the new dean is very smart and so on. She was also, you can read and about her other scholarship accomplishments and that kind of thing. She was wonderful about that. But she had some other talent. We were continually astonished by finding out something she was done. I was talking with her one time, and she said, "I swapped out the engine on a pickup truck once." Some of the Lavoie family might know more about that. But what? You changed the engine on a pickup truck? She said, "Yeah." She also had a motorcycle license. I don't know if you knew that about her. And I decided to start riding motorcycles later on in life, and I needed someone to ride along with the examiner when I took my road test. Motorcycle, and then you have to have someone who has a car, also has a motorcycle like this. So cool. Here I was on my motorcycle, taking it downtown, and Kathy was riding with it. Asked, and I thanked her. She was a very highly effective teen. Everyone will agree. People who just everyone will agree she was very effective as a dean. One time I went to a SUNY leadership conference as an associate dean, and they gave us the Myers-Briggs personality test. Now, some of you have taken the Myers-Briggs. Very interesting because you find out a little bit about yourself. You know what your talents are and what your personality traits are supposed to be. And so I was talking to her about mine. She said, "Well, I did that once too. I went to a conference and I did the Myers-Briggs, and it said that I was really capable as I didn't. It wasn't something that I would make my whole identity out of." But that's not how she said it. She said that what the Myers-Briggs said, that I'm good at it, but I don't care. But of course she did care. But she'd laugh, you know, she'd tell that story, the Myers-Briggs test. "Oh, I'm good at it, but I don't care." One day I started, and I was feeling about I had to take as associate dean that affected the lives. And I said, "Kathy, make the decision." She said, "It's really easy. Just ask yourself, what decision would help the students the most?" And I've used that for 20 some years now in various administrative positions. What decision would help the students the most? It clarifies it quite quickly. She also had a lively sense of humor, of course, and she was famous about the season, and somehow things would get so look forward to not really to this silly season. She'd say there's three steps. Of course, when you're dealing with grievances and I always remember there's three. Quite literally. One time she asked me to go to a conference. We had some free time at the National Museum of Natural History, the Smithsonian, and looked at some of the exhibits. And one of them was early man. Some of you might have seen this. And they had this computer graphics thing where you take early, choose a woman and urge your faith, right? So I wish I could save the as a Neanderthal, flamingos are. Remember, a while back when Kathy was dean, there were these plaques that appeared, three, stuck in the garden at the faculty entrance to Hudson Hall. And I would walk by those every day, and finally registered. One of my favorite stories, Kathy, is that she was at a meeting with the department chairs, and one of the chairs, the clock doesn't work. And without missing a beat, she said, "Well, the clock is correct." And I thought, how does she know that? And I almost went to try to change. It's not very much, I think, but I'm really correct. Should have astonished department chairs. Any comments? See that Dave Canoyer's here. Dave, you remember the time we went to the conference in Syracuse? And so the chair of the math department and the associate dean and the dean of arts and sciences, Kathy, on our way, going out of the secretary, Syracuse. Absolutely. To, They're like, I don't know, Syracuse. So what hotel? So she of course handed, get with all the information that we got to the place, but that question was find a hotel. At that. Oh. Then there, of course, were the bats. You know, Kathy loved bats, and I think, you know, Jim, you family can tell me about this, but I think people thought that she wanted that. That would give her stuff. And she probably had every one that had ever been. So in her office, she kept a stack of these stuffed bats, which came in handy when the dean's office moved to Ward Hall, because there were these sensors in the lights. So every 7 minutes, the lights would go out in her office. You have it sensed motion. She, you know, walking around, and so she would stuff the bats, and the lights would come on, and then minutes later she. I'll but when I was thinking about across the postings that people put online for our colleagues last year, and I saw one there that Kathy posted about Al, and I thought that really it describes Kathy as well. And sometimes Kathy for me, this is what she wrote. She said, thank you. We did make a good team and worked hard. Al will always be remembered for his hard work, ethical standards, and his interesting sense of humor. I shall miss him. Time goes by too damn fast. Kathy.
Bob, come on down. This is Mom's other son, Robbie. I'm sorry, Robert. Some things are hard to break.
I have notes, because I had to do that. So I just wanted to talk about family. Is for as long as I can remember, family wasn't just who I was related to. I remember having Uncle Dr. Blank, Uncle Dr. that, Aunt Dr. Blank. And it never occurred to me that someone you knew might not be your family, even though you don't share blood. We've had people over our house living with us, people visiting so long that I'm wondering if they're living with us. We've had people who knew more about my life than I knew about it sometimes. I have had, you know, like I had one day, I was coming across from Kehoe towards Hawkins, I had a class, and I see these two students dancing around for joy and, you know, just being very happy. And one of them stops, looks at me and goes, "Are you related to Dr. Lavoie?" And I'm like, "Yes." Do I need to call for help? No. So it turns out he wasn't going to graduate. He had run out of money or whatever, but he was done. That was the end of his college career, but without a degree. He went in, talked to her and be like, I don't know what to do. 20 minutes later, he had a form graduating a semester early and with like 2 or 3 things that he didn't even know that he could get. And he was so happy. And he saw my face displayed there. And he said he was so overwhelmed, he didn't want to give her a hug. So he gave me a hug by proxy because he saw me and said, you're related. And I'm like, yes, I am. So I will give the hug to her for you. And I did. I actually went immediately to her, to there and said, did you just help 2 students? Oh, yes, I did. Okay, got it. All right. Other things, it's like, the things you don't realize that you are recognized for. I've been recognized as her child by my smile, by my laugh, by my gregarious and giving nature. And I know I got this from my family. I know I've got it from my friends. I know I've got it from everyone around. I currently work with my sister at a company, and she'll be telling stories, and everybody in our team's like, yeah, right. And when I confirm it, the faces, oh my God, those are beautiful, because they're like, there's no way you went caving in a cave with sulfuric acid from dripping from the roof. Oh, yeah, I got a burn. Yeah. And, it's like, yeah, sulfuric acid, wonderful on the skin, just plays it right off. Baby smooth. And they're like, are they working together to prank us? No, we're not. And that's the best part. And she had always just brought people together. And it was always unbelievable is a good word to describe my mother, but not in a bad way. It was things like this was my first semester, or first day of like maybe my 3rd or 4th semester here. I bump into a teacher for my 333 comp sci class. And I didn't know that this was my professor. I just knew it was a professor. We had a lovely, wonderful lunch, and the stereotype of your, the college dean's child is that they are going to be, they're there on their parents' merit. And I know for a fact, if I tried to leverage her as merit to protect myself, I'd be up there with her, no paddle, just kick me down there again. But I also knew that I had her support. Is that anytime I needed anything, she was there. I also knew that this was given to anyone, regardless of if they knew me or not. I had a friend also, again, she needed the deviation of requirement for her degree. And she was like so terrified to go talk to the dean because dean's scary. I'm like, well, why? I know these deans, they're wonderful. And again, all through her. So we went in and she was sitting at if you remember, the very front desk where there's usually a student is sitting before you even get into any of the secretaries. She was sitting there grading papers, and my friend walked up and explained the situation, thinking this was, not my mother. And I'm like, oh, no, this is my mom. And it's like, oh, okay. And so mom looks at the paper and goes, yeah, this would be great. Yeah, okay. So what you have to do is you need to take this, you know what? No. And signed in the dean's spot right then and there and said, just take it to the department head. He'll sign and just bring it back. We'll find it. And so, the policy was supposed to be, but she didn't care. She just helped the student. And again, it was valid help, of course. And as we're walking out, my friend turns and looks at me and goes, is your mother going to get in trouble for signing for the dean? And I go, oh, never mentioned this, did I? And they were like, what do you mean? My mom's the dean. And naturally this cascade to all my friends, like kicking in my door. Your mom, dean. Yes, she is this. Have you met my? And she just took everything with this breath of life. She took everyone as family. As Steve said, you know, what helps the students? What helps others? She donated to so many charities I lost. All right. Gave me the tax return. I couldn't figure them all out. I mean, I picked a few and I went with it. Help of celebrated life. She celebrated people. I've learned from her love, just everything. Love. Will carry that to my son, and if he has children of his own, I will teach to them. If a neighbor kid shows up at my door and is like, "Hey, you got a sandwich?" Yes, yes, I do. That was her way. Yeah, that Nana was just convinced by everyone around here. You don't have to look in my face. You don't have to laugh. The feeling that we have in our hearts is I'm carrying mine and showing it to everybody. Thank you.
Would Tim Myhook please come to the stage? Sure.
Let me set up here. There we go. I already have my back. Hi, I'm Tim Myhook. I've known Kathy Lavoie since she hired me as just a few years here as Arts and Science team. She was at the Lake Champlain Research Institute for many years. Boss and successful professional relationship with Dean Lavoie. I can honestly say she was also one of the best humans I have ever met. I first met her on my interview in Plattsburgh. There's a down-to-earth who I could definitely work with. I was a phone call here at SUNY Plattsburgh. She was not only our longtime dean of our longtime hockey fan. She was at every lady ever and supported them as they won numerous, I believe, John, it's 7 national titles over the years. In addition to her love for Cardinal hockey, every semester, and the world-renowned cave research scientist, see back or and SUNY. She was an excellent scholar. Most or do much. They're so busy being dean. So her work in this area is truly impressive. She set a great example for the faculty, myself included. Dr. Lavoie was a true cardinal. Everyone knew she was dedicated to the success of SUNY Plattsburgh, especially her kids who attended college here. What greater testament, right, as dean that sent her kids to college. She filled her time with very useful and productive ventures. As dean, she had a knack for knowing the people she worked with and how to communicate with them. And did I mention, it's already been mentioned, sometimes blunt. The bottom line is she cared about the people she worked with. Everyone who interacted with her knew that. I needed that kind of boss, especially when I first arrived at Plattsburgh. The Research Institute was somewhat of a contentious and debated topic, as I found out very quickly on my arrival to campus. Right? I was told many disparaging stories within days of my arrival at SUNY Plattsburgh by faculty who either had a grudge or sometimes just a very strong opinion. Sometimes faculty can be known for their opinions. It became apparent I was in a newly hired non-traditional position as an institute director that had engendered some degree of contentious debate among the faculty. Needless to say, I needed some guidance, some leadership in this new faculty position I'd moved halfway across the country to take. My department chair, Malcolm Fairweather, provided simple yet brilliant advice. Tim, we need to meet with Dean Lavoie. We did, and when she heard the chatter, all of which she had heard, she provided what I can say was the best I've ever received. She said, "You are here to make the Institute a success. We brought you in to do just. Now go do that and ignore the naysayers, as I will handle them." I knew from that day forward, Kathy had my back. She continued that for all the remaining years of our professional relationship. As we collaborated on projects together, co-advised student researchers, and enjoyed each other's company. I also learned she was decisive and could make the tough decisions when needed. I'm sure others from Plattsburgh State have similar stories to tell about her leadership and never-ending dedication to the faculty. She handled some pretty rough faculty personalities over the years, disproving the old analogy and demonstrating that you can herd cats at least some of the time. Even those who did not like the decisions she made, they respected her. From the start, I had the utmost respect for Kathy, which grew into a beloved friendship. Perhaps it was because we had a strong professional rapport, or just that we shared a common interest in mentoring research students. At some point, our institute staff meeting evolved into a lunch meeting instead. I can't remember how that started, but at some point we began to have Mel schedule our meetings during lunch, so we could go to a local diner instead of meeting in her office. We usually spent more time talking about life than work in those so-called meetings. All future staff meetings were over lunch following the first lunch meeting. She would never let me pay, except the semester when she retired as dean, and I grabbed the check and would not let her have it back. That was the least I could do after all that Kathy Lavoie had done to help me in my career. Anyway, at those lunches, we became good friends. Occasionally others would join us for our meeting. Al Mihalik from the dean's office, who was such a great conversationalist. Other faculty or students from time to time, you get the picture. She gave me life advice when I needed it, and I did need it a few times. I would listen to her stories of caving trips, family, etc. She loved to tell a story about Jim's cave adventure. As she would say, "I thought we lost him there for a minute or so, but then he popped back up." You could see the relief on her face every single time she told that story. Thankfully, she did not lose Jim in that mishap. Turns out we all lost her many years later. That's the kind of person my dean, Kathy Lavoie, was. Someone who cared about other people. There are countless stories of her doing everything she could to help people achieve success at SUNY Plattsburgh. I'm sure Mel has more stories than I do. I'm sure Al had even more. Rest in peace, Al. Here are a few comments faculty shared about Dr. Lavoie when she retired as dean, and we held an event in this very room to celebrate her career. Dean Lavoie, the best supervisor, dedicated, trustworthy. Kathy Lavoie was there when I needed her. Kathy Lavoie was directions. That really describes her. Last one, Dean Lavoie was supportive and open to new ideas. As many can attest, Kathy gave good advice. So here are a few tidbits. Please find 30 minutes in a day to get something done. I still use that advice. And Tim, SUNY is a bureaucracy, so let's just do this later. I followed that particular advice times in my career. I picked this one I would follow. Probably because I knew my dean had my back. We will all miss her dearly. In some ways, it feels like we lost her prematurely. It also feels like just her time to go. She had done so much in life already. to her family, Jim and the kids, to her grandparents. Extremely with the rest of us. You will be, many of us love you dearly. These know you treasured many in life. I'll do my best. I think 3 minutes. Okay. It's 4 right now. With you, Tim.
Mullen, please come up. I may have butchered your name, I apologize.
Tom Moran. And my former remarks, one of the things that strikes me is that we can, when the people who speak about them, who have never collaborated, often haven't even talked about them, say exactly the same thing. I was literally on my way to meet her and some of our colleagues who have long worked together. Done. I thought to myself that people who think it is fun to go deep into the earth and cross or live to be 100. Indestructible and would be with us for a long time. As I mentioned, I was the provost at the time we appointed Kathy. As soon as I met her, I knew she was going to be our next Dean of Arts and Sciences. It's not that I was prescient, but rather that I'd seen her resume and file and talked to her references and colleagues. To a person, they represented her and trusted, or they respected her and trusted her. I knew my task was to persuade her to come to Plattsburgh. Within a few months of her arrival, she seemed like she had worked here for years. She understood the role of being a dean thoroughly. She learned about the college fully and quickly. She rapidly earned the trust of the faculty and staff. And her down-to-earth style fit our campus. It was clear she was comfortable and secure with who she was. She was authentic. At the end of her first year, I remember writing in her evaluation that not only was she an excellent dean, she was a popular teacher and a highly productive scholar, as well as a widely well-regarded, companionable colleague. I said, we hired several people in one when we hired Kathy. As a dean, Kathy was smart, fair, never mean, and genuinely kind. But she embodied standards of excellence and made difficult judgments. In doing so, though, she never sulked or felt sorry for herself or complained. She had an effortless capacity for hard work. Her judgments were clear-headed and incisive, which was in contrast to her desk, which never seemed the contrary. It often seemed like she opened the window when a hurricane had passed through and let everything blow around. She would explain her decisions and views so cogently and calmly that when she was occasionally, I would present an opposing point of view. She would look over her glasses at me and say pointedly, well, that is one way of looking at it. I knew, though, it wasn't actually a good way to look at it. But she never engendered antagonisms that was centered on ego conflicts. She didn't divert attention to herself, and she wasn't precious or self-congratulatory. Language to describe the work that faculty needed. Service was at the heart of the dean. She was an academic administrator who did her work in good faith. She did her job so that we could do ours. As a personality, she showed no drama, just a straightforward, take life as it comes attitude. She was matter of fact, unpretentious, and honest. An example for this, for me, occurred when I had written a document I thought had significant institutional ramifications. I asked her what she thought of it. She simply said, erudite and verbose. From someone else, might have said, Kathy seemed like a settled assessment. As I've mentioned, she was a great teacher of biology. She approached teaching not as mastery of dense arcane material. And that was exciting. She liked to say, hey, it's interesting and fun. In contrast, my biology teacher seemed to think that amoeba, as I found them to be. I wished I'd had Kathy for a biology teacher. I would have learned more and I would have enjoyed it more. In later years, we regularly met for lunch. I used to say to her, look, I brought you to this. I want to make sure you're having a good time. Demands of administration talked more about personal things. She shared her love and pride in her family in ways that were profoundly touching. I was walking last evening, thinking about what I would say today about Kathy. I thought, as I have so often in the past, how extraordinary she was. And to have someone like this on our campus for years was our great good fortune. She was a first-rate administrator, a terrific teacher, an acclaimed scholar, a deeply engaged campus citizen, and a wonderful colleague. I stopped, wondering how I could express Kathy's rare qualities. I looked up at the sky, and there was a rainbow over the lake. Kathy was too prosaic. By mentioning a rainbow, but nevertheless, thank you.
Third child? He's gone down.
Just kidding. Everybody, my name is Betty Lavoie. I am Dr. Lavoie's daughter. I'm the third child. So just put. I want to thank everybody for being here, both physically and virtually. Obviously, I wish we could be here on better circumstances. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I want to thank SUNY Plattsburgh and specifically Janet Manor, Alyssa McGovern, Chartwell, and Nicholas Agony, I think I said your name, for helping me prepare for this event quickly. So I'm going to start by paraphrasing a TV show that I'm pretty sure my mother never watched, but she should have because she would have loved it, called The Good Place. And trust me, this makes sense, and it will be back on the exam. So write it down. wave on the ocean. You can see it, measure it, its height, the way the sun passed through it, and it's there and you can see it. You know what it is. It's a wave, and then it crashes to the shore and it's gone. But the water is still there. The wave is just a different way for the water to be for a little while. The wave returns to the ocean where it came from and where it's supposed to be. Let me tell you about the tidal wave I got to see in my entire life, and that was Dr. Kathleen Lavoie. Growing up in a house with Kathy Lavoie as your mother and Jim Lavoie as your father is an experience, one that my siblings and I jokingly tell people would be a novel titled Raised by Wolves. When I shared that I always liked Aunt Kathy, but it's like finding out a person in your life has secretly been Indiana Jones the entire time. I get it. She's not really what your stories traveling with her. Our stories range from something silly like using the car to find each other in the dark. Ma, why? To something crazy, like the time my mom got stung by a scorpion at the entrance of Cueva to Mexico, and continued on with the expedition. That night, Kathy continued crawling around a cave with sulfuric gas everywhere and sulfuric acid dripping from the ceiling while her arms spat the entire time, and she didn't tell anybody. I knew about the scorpion, but she didn't tell anybody. Or the time I had to tell her that the rattlesnake that was coiling up and rattling at her was trying to indicate to her that maybe she should step away from taking pictures of it. Mother, please step away from the rattlesnake. Want to take a moment to note that my brothers and I have our own stories advising mom to step away from multiple types of snakes, scorpions, and spiders. A great deal of stories from my family that I tell my husband, I have to pause and look at him and say, I'm sorry, what part of that wasn't normal? As I take in the look of shock and concern that graces his facial expressions. Mom made sure our lives were not boring. Half the time, we weren't sure if she was in another country or at work teaching scientists of the future. That isn't to say that she wasn't home. We did see mom in her natural habitat, watching the Weather Channel during her season, sitting out on the porch reading her phone with her glasses down and a cat in her lap, or feeding a bat that she was rehabilitating from the fridge, where I get to ask questions. Mom, is this Elizabeth III or IV? Science. She and I would geek out to science papers she had found, to lab work we had done, or what work we would do in Kentucky. She was so incredibly smart. She was my immediate source of knowledge and far better at explaining something to me than the internet ever could have been. Mom's genius really shined through when she concocted experiments no one had ever done or probably would have ever thought of. My mom's brain and dad's handiwork and flexibility made inventions such as the cricket safe cages, or my personal favorite, the cricket treadmill, so that we could test how long it took to exhaust a cricket in the cave. Craftsmanship. Once we just prodded the crickets with pencils, and then we had students following, putting coins down along the way, so how long it took them to stop. Mom would teach so much that when she was there, more teaching. I read to her the definition of retirement a few times in the last few years, and it never stuck. Her teaching style seemed archaic, but I think someone quickly writing overhead on an overhead projector is the best education method to date. Her exams were always fair and typically had a funny science cartoon to read while you were taking them. Mom loved her students and peers. The students we would take the annual Mammoth students that crossed her path, the faculty and staff she mentored and educated. When I was on campus, the amount of people who would stop me to tell me how my mom had given them advice or that her class just completely blew their mind. Some sort of tough love situation that she had resolved for them, that they absolutely needed to hear that tough love for. Mom loved caving. Her early days as a caver, she was a rock star. She was the first woman to get to the back of a cave in India with carbide lamps, doing a mile-long crawl and a pre-climb cave that was a couple dozen of feet high. Light sources at that point, save a single candle that she had lit clenched in her teeth as she climbed out. If you, a colleague of hers reminded me of a story where they were rappelling down and Lookout Mountain in Chattanooga. There was a waterfall that would soak you, so cavers built a low dam with a removable board so they could hold the water for a while. Their very limited time to rip them down and even less time to go back up before the water came down on you. To purchase gear from, so that's very got so excited. Score and how many penalties we were into the period. That she slow down or costume. About the geese. And it was a her life was far more reaching than that. Bugs from for animals were always no kill. I was adopted so many pets because my parents couldn't say no to an animal in need. Mom recycled like no one else could have. She would zip through and recycle. Mom loved her family. Always in touch with her mother, brothers, and sisters, take long trips just to see them. She loved her cousins and her aunts and uncles. Anytime an area with family, her humor and she would spend time with them every chance she got and supporting them through every milestone. She picked me up on the way in the car to see the new baby. She always had someone to give, and Aaron, Molly, and Seth. Grandchildren made her smile, and she was a very proud Nana. Mom loved her immediate family. It's easy to kind of boil down my parents' relationship into Mom ran into a cave and Dad followed behind her with a flashlight that she forgot to grab. Mom was in as a hero. I guess it turned out to be all right. And patient, funny, and smart men. So fundamental. I adore Jim and Rob. They both married young thought, leading for qualities of their mother. And traits that aren't my mom. And not to cry during the sessions. Guys, thank you. So my mom was very excited to have a daughter. She loved her sons, but she was excited to teach a girl how to navigate this crazy world. I'm not trying to undersell this to you. I know how damn lucky I was to have her as a mom. We used to joke that if someone asked if we could re-up our mother-daughter contract, we would sign up again every year. Making my mom laugh was one of my favorite things to do. She laughed so hard that she'd start to cough, trying to catch her breath, and she'd wave her tears in her eyes. I said it in the obituary, but seriously, my mom had the best belly laugh in the biz. A lot of people noted how similar we look. I remember walking to camp and one of the skating buddies stood, mouthing, "Holy crap, Kathy, you have aged a day." We would beam at each other and any outside observer could see how much we loved each other. Even when we weren't together, chances were pretty high we were telling somebody else about the other one. When I would see her, I would hug and hold her for a long time and she would not pull away. We would seek into each other and hold each other up as we sighed with relief. She called me Betty, Mary, Bets, and Babu. I was happy to go on her adventures. I was happy to be concerned with her. I was happy to challenge her. I was happy to hear from her and share my life with her. I was happy to tell her when I got a good deal at a store. She loved a good bargain. I was and am happy that she was the lady who raised me. My mom was and is one of my best friends in the world. Someone said, "Thank you for sharing your mother with me." And it never occurred to me not to share her. She was amazing, and anyone and everyone who met her knew it. It would have been irresponsible with me to keep her away from any of you. My mom always made sure we were taken care of. Mom is the reason that I'm married today. I got into a car accident 7 years ago on Mother's Day. And although I never left consciousness, I wasn't there, and I just kept repeating myself every 15 minutes in a stuck loop. When I woke up at the hospital, she was the first person I saw. She made sure to check in with me overnight, waking me up every few minutes, hours, to make sure I hadn't slipped into a coma. I'm pretty sure she didn't sleep a wink that night. Upon being released from the hospital, I needed a new car, and Mom was the one who brought me to get one. The lovely, geeky, charming salesman and I were finishing the paperwork and about to handshake goodbye. Mom, out of nowhere and very uncharacteristic of her, said, "Do you have a son that's single?" Turns out he did, and turns out Mom saying those 7 words is how I met my wonderful husband, Steve. Mom said she knew he was a keeper when the second time she met him, he was chasing my nieces around the house with a Nerf gun and a big pink flowery hat. She gifted him the bat sticker less than 6 months into our relationship because she knew. This Kathy Lavoie wave I've described to you, I'm bringing it back. Hope you guys wrote it down. Was a force of nature that's returned to the ocean and will have ripples felt for many people for many years. To see that wave was incredible, and I fortunately got to witness it my whole life. It was beautiful and awe-inspiring. Mom, people tell me how much I am like my mom, and that makes me very proud. I always knew my mom to be supportive, kind, giving, curious, stubborn, intelligent, and loving. Mom was supportive in all the ways she. Mom was kind in how she made you feel like you were. Mom was giving with every donation and piece of time. Mom was curious what she approached life with. Mom was stubborn because how else do you get without it? Mom was intelligent by being a renowned scientist and pushing the glass ceiling out of the way for everyone else to get through. And finally, this is where I'm not going to stick. Mom was loving with every hug, every kiss, every sigh of relief, every belly laugh. And every time she called me her sweet little babu.
You stuck the landing, Betty. Thank you for being here to celebrate my wonderful mother's life, for attending. There are still snacks, please eat, drink. We'll be shutting it down around 4. Thank you for all for coming.